Hello, survivors. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the story. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to our channel. We appreciate it, and thank you in advance. Please leave the name of the city you're listening from in the comment section below. It helps us see our reach in the community. Let's start the story. For 10 years, I was a ghost. Robberies, disappearances, names that weren't mine. I was smart, careful, always one step ahead. But eventually the feds caught up. I was number 7 on their most wanted list when they finally cornered me in a motel outside Phoenix. It was a Tuesday morning, hotter than hell. I'd made the mistake of staying an extra day to meet a contact. The desk clerk must have recognized me from the news. Next thing I knew, there were unmarked sedans and tactical units surrounding the place. "Maddox, farewell!" a voice boomed through a megaphone. "FBI, we have the building surrounded. Come out with your hands up." I remember laughing at that. 10 years of working alone, of perfect plans and clean getaways, and they expected me to just walk out? There had to be at least 15 agents out there, all itching to be the one who brought in the infamous Maddox Reed, a name that wasn't even mine to begin with. I had 2 options: surrender or fight. The rational choice would have been to give up, lawyer up, and work out a deal. But rationality wasn't what got me this far. My first shot went through the window, shattering glass across the parking lot. Return fire came immediately, bullets tearing through the thin motel walls like they were made of paper. I rolled behind the bed, trying to control my breathing as plaster dust filled the air. A tactical error on my part. I should have mapped more exit routes, should have been more careful. But when you've outsmarted the law for a decade, you start to think you're invincible. I managed to make it to the bathroom window, tight fit, but my only chance. Halfway through, I felt it. A white-hot burn across my neck. A bullet had grazed me, slicing through skin and muscle, missing the artery by centimeters. Blood poured down my collar, warm and sticky. The fall from the window knocked the wind out of me. I staggered to my feet, vision blurring, only to find myself staring down the barrel of a standard-issue FBI pistol. "Don't move," the agent said. Young guy, probably his first big arrest. I could see the excitement in his eyes, mixed with caution. "Hands where I can see them." Everything after that came in fragments. The cold bite of handcuffs, the rough push into a government vehicle, the triumphant voices of federal agents congratulating each other, and the steady drip of my blood onto the car's floor mat. They took me to some small county hospital, Saint something or other, rather than risk the drive to Phoenix with me bleeding out. Small town medicine. Just a single-story building with a cross on top. The kind of place that probably dealt with more rattlesnake bites than gunshot wounds. "He needs stitches before transport," I heard someone say. "Can't have him bleeding all over the place during processing." They cuffed me to a hospital bed in a small examination room. 2 agents stayed with me, the young one from before and an older guy with salt and pepper hair, who looked like he'd been chasing guys like me for decades. They positioned themselves by the door, weapons holstered but ready. A nurse came in, middle-aged, efficient-looking. She examined my neck wound with clinical detachment, not caring who I was or what I'd done. "Going to need about 10 stitches, she told no one in particular, and antibiotics. As she cleaned the wound, I noticed something odd. The hospital seemed unusually busy. Raised voices in the corridor, hurried footsteps, a code announcement over the PA system that made the nurse pause, frowning. "That's the 3rd emergency in an hour," she muttered. "Must be a pileup on the highway." The younger FBI agent, Egon, according to his badge, shifted uncomfortably. "How much longer will this take?" "10 minutes, she replied, threading a needle. "Maybe 15. That's when we heard the first scream, high-pitched and abruptly cut short. The older agent straightened, hand moving to his weapon. "Check it out," he told Garcia. "I'll stay with the prisoner." Garcia nodded, slipping out into the corridor. The nurse continued working, but I could see tension in her movements now. "What's going on out there?" I asked. She shook her head. "No idea. We've had strange cases coming in all morning, bite wounds, fevers, aggressive behavior. Nothing in the news about..." The door burst open. Garcia stumbled back in, his face pale. "Walsh, we need to go. Now." "What is it?" the older agent, Walsh, demanded. "Something's happening. People are attacking each other in the ER. Biting. It's like they're rabid or something." The nurse dropped her suture needle. "That can't be right. I just saw Dr. Patel 20 minutes ago." "Well, I just saw him trying to tear out a paramedic's throat," Garcia replied, his voice rising. "We need to get the prisoner out of here." Walsh made a quick decision. "Finish the bandage," he told the nurse. "We're moving him." She hastily taped a bandage over my half-stitched wound. Through the thin hospital walls, I could hear the commotion growing. Crashes, shouts, what sounded like gurneys being overturned. And underneath it all, a strange guttural moaning that raised the hair on my arms. The agents uncuffed me from the bed but immediately secured my wrists in front of me. Walsh grabbed my arm, his grip tight enough to bruise. "Try anything," he warned, "and I'll put a bullet in your leg. Clear?" I nodded. For once in my life, I wasn't thinking about escape. Something about those sounds from the hallway had my survival instinct screaming. Whatever was happening, I didn't want to face it alone. We stepped into the corridor, and the full scope of the chaos hit us. Medical staff were running in all directions. A doctor was trying to barricade a door with a crash cart. Blood, far too much blood, smeared the walls and floor in long, dragging streaks. "This way," Walsh directed, pulling me toward what I assumed was an exit. Garcia took point, weapon drawn now. We made it halfway down the corridor when a nurse burst through a door ahead of us. But something was wrong. Her scrubs were soaked with blood, her movements were spasmodic. Her head swiveled toward us and I saw her face. Eyes clouded white, skin gray, mouth snapped shut again and again. Blood and something darker dripped from her chin. "Jesus Christ," breathed Garcia. The nurse, or what used to be a nurse, locked onto us and charged, moving with horrifying speed. Garcia fired 2 shots. Center mass. She stumbled but kept coming. Walsh pushed me against the wall and drew his weapon, firing once, hitting her in the shoulder. Still she came. "The head!" I shouted, sudden understanding clicking into place. "Aim for the head!" Garcia's 3rd shot caught her in the forehead. She dropped instantly, body collapsing in a lifeless heap, finally still. Walsh turned to me, suspicious. "How did you know that would work?" "Everyone knows that's how you kill zombies," I said, the word feeling ridiculous in my mouth despite the evidence before us. "Haven't you seen any movies?" Before he could respond, 3 more figures rounded the corner. A doctor and 2 patients in hospital gowns, all moving erratic, twitching like it was fighting something inside its own body, all showing the same dead eyes and blood-smeared mouths. "Go," Walsh ordered. We ran, dodging abandoned equipment and overturned furniture. The hospital had become a maze of horror. Through open doors, I glimpsed scenes that would haunt me forever. A doctor being torn apart by his own patients, an elderly man cornered in a supply closet, a woman cradling a child, both of them showing the telltale gray pallor of infection. We burst through doors into what looked like a small cafeteria. Garcia slammed them shut behind us, dragging a vending machine to barricade the entrance. "We need to get to the car," Walsh said, breathing hard. "Call this in." "Phones are down," Garcia replied, checking his cell. "No signal." I noticed they'd loosened their grip on me in the confusion. They were distracted, panicking. It was the opportunity I'd been waiting for, though not one I'd ever expected. When the windows shattered and more infected poured in from outside, everything happened in a blur. Walsh shoved me toward an emergency exit while firing at the approaching horde. Garcia was quickly overwhelmed, screaming as teeth sank into his arm. In the chaos, I made my move. As Walsh fought off an infected orderly, I slammed my shoulder into him, knocking him off balance. He stumbled against a table, and I drove my cuffed hands down onto his wrist. His gun clattered to the floor, our eyes met for a split second. No words were needed. We both knew what was happening. I grabbed the weapon and took aim, not at him, but at the infected that was closing in behind him. The bullet caught it between the eyes. Walsh didn't hesitate. He pulled a key from his pocket and tossed it to me. "Get those cuffs off and run," he said. "I'm going back for Garcia." "He's already gone," I told him, unlocking the handcuffs. "And you will be too if you go back there." He hesitated, torn between duty and survival. That moment of indecision cost him everything. An infected patient, still trailing IV tubes, lunged through the broken window and sank teeth into Walsh's neck. His scream cut through me as blood fountained from the wound. I should have helped him. Maybe I could have. But 10 years of looking out for only myself doesn't change in an instant. I ran, Walsh's gun clutched in my hand, his dying scream echoing in my ears. Outside was no better than inside. The hospital parking lot had become a killing field. Overturned ambulances, medical staff fighting a losing battle against their former patients, civilians trying to flee only to be dragged down. I spotted a police cruiser, keys probably still in the ignition, 20 yards away. Might as well have been 20 miles. Between me and potential escape, at least a dozen infected stumbled about, their heads turning in unison at the sound of breaking glass from behind me. I took a deep breath, readied the gun, and ran. The first infected reached for me, a man with his throat torn open, arterial blood still pulsing weakly from the wound. I dodged under her grasp and kept moving. Another lunged, a paramedic missing half his face, and I had to fire. The sound drew more of them. 5 yards from the cruiser, I ran out of bullets. 3 infected blocked my path, advancing with limbs bending the wrong way. I ducked between parked cars, trying to circle around. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my wounded neck. The half-finished stitches pulling with every movement. A scream drew their attention, a woman trying to protect her child from approaching infected. The distraction gave me the opening I needed. I sprinted the final distance, yanked open the cruiser door, and threw myself inside. Keys in the ignition, just as I'd hoped. The engine roared to life and I reversed hard, crushing an infected between the cruiser and another vehicle. I didn't look back as I accelerated out of the parking lot, leaving behind the dying and the dead. On the road, reality started setting in. The world I knew was falling apart around me. Traffic signals didn't matter anymore. Neither did speed limits or lane markers. Cars had been abandoned haphazardly, some still running, doors hanging open. I had to swerve constantly to avoid collisions. I flipped on the police radio, hoping for information. Most channels were static, but occasionally voices broke through. Multiple outbreaks across the county. CDC advisory to shelter in place. National Guard deployment to major cities. Symptoms include fever, aggression, and... The last coherent broadcast I heard was a military commander ordering his units to establish quarantine zones. "Shoot to kill," he said. "Headshots only. The infected cannot be saved." I drove for hours, heading east on instinct alone. Small towns and rural areas flashed by, each showing signs of the growing apocalypse. Abandoned vehicles, buildings with broken windows. Occasional groups of infected wandering aimlessly. I avoided the highways, sticking to back roads I'd memorized years ago when planning escape routes became second nature. By sunset, I'd put nearly 200 miles between me and that hospital. The cruiser was running low on gas, and I needed to find shelter before dark. The infected seemed more active at night, drawn to lights and movement. I pulled into an abandoned gas station, one of those mom-and-pop operations with a small convenience store attached. No electricity, but the tanks might still have fuel. As I approached, I scanned for movement. Nothing. The place had already been looted, judging by the broken front window and scattered merchandise. Inside, I found a few overlooked supplies: bottled water, stale protein bars, a first aid kit someone had dropped in their haste. Most importantly, I found ammunition that fit Walsh's gun, stored behind the counter. The owner had been prepared for trouble, just not this kind of trouble. As I rummaged through the store, a sudden realization hit me. No one was hunting me anymore. No FBI agents checking motels, no police scanning license plates, no facial recognition cameras tracking my movements. The law had died screaming, just like Walsh in that cafeteria. I was free. I laughed then, a hollow sound in the empty store. 10 years running, and all it took was the end of the world to give me my freedom. The irony wasn't lost on me. As night fell, I barricaded myself in the store's small office, a candle providing minimal light. I used the first aid kit to clean and rebandage my neck wound. It would scar badly, but infection was the least of my worries now. Sitting in that dark room, gun on my lap, I had time to think about what came next. I'd always been good at adapting, at creating new identities and starting over. But this was different. This wasn't changing towns or changing names. This was a whole new world, one where my skills might actually be useful for something other than stealing. I thought about Walsh and Garcia, about the nurse who'd tried to stitch me up, about the woman in the parking lot trying to save her child. All people I couldn't or wouldn't help. 10 years of looking out for only myself had served me well in my old life. But in this new one, I wasn't so sure. Outside, the darkness was alive with distant screams and the occasional gunshot. Humanity's last stand, playing out in isolated pockets across the country. And here I was, Maddox Reed, a name that wasn't even mine, sitting alone in a gas station, wondering if a man who'd spent his life taking from others had anything left to give. The world had given me a second chance, a clean slate in a dirty world. The question was, what would I do with it? The world hadn't ended. It had transformed. That was my first coherent thought as Ray and I crept through Millbrook's devastated streets toward the police station. 4 blocks had never felt so far. "Stay low," Ray whispered, motioning toward an overturned mail truck. "Movement ahead." I followed his lead, crouching behind the vehicle. Through the gathering dusk, I could make out a small group of infected milling around the intersection. Their heads swiveled in unison at a distant sound, glass breaking somewhere up the street. They shambled toward it like moths drawn to flame, their coordination unnervingly precise despite their fractured movements. "They hunt better in groups," Ray noted, "like wolves, but dumber." We waited until they disappeared around a corner before continuing. The police station loomed ahead, a squat brick building with barred windows and a flagpole out front. The American flag still fluttered weakly in the evening breeze, tattered and blood-spattered but somehow still flying. "Something's wrong," Ray said as we approached. The front doors stood wide open. No lights, no movement inside. "Should be locked down automatically." I readied the shotgun. Maybe someone disabled it. "Trying to get in or out. Only 4 of us had the codes," Ray replied, drawing his service weapon. "And I saw 2 of them go down this morning." The station's lobby was a scene from a slaughterhouse. Blood painted the walls in arterial sprays and handprints. A body lay draped across the reception desk, the back of its skull missing. Not infected. Someone had put them down before they could turn. Ray moved with the precision of a man on his home turf, checking corners, scanning for threats. I followed, watching our 6, an instinct honed through years of breaking and entering. We made an unlikely pair, the law and the lawless, working in perfect tandem. "Dispatch is clear," Ray reported, checking the communications room. "Radio's dead, landlines too." We moved deeper into the station, clearing rooms systematically. Evidence lockup, break room, locker room, all empty. No survivors, no infected. Just bloodstains and silence. "Armory next," Ray said, heading down a corridor. "If we're lucky, they didn't get to it before." A sound stopped us both, metal scraping against concrete. From behind a heavy door marked "Holding." Ray tensed. Could be Marcus. He was on booking duty this morning. Or could be what's left of Marcus, I countered, raising the shotgun. Ray unlocked the door with keys from his belt, pushing it open carefully. The holding area contained 6 cells, 3 on each side of a central walkway. 5 stood empty, their doors hanging open. In the last cell, huddled in the corner, was a woman in her early 30s, clutching what looked like a police baton. "Ray!" she called out, her voice hoarse. "Jesus Christ, is that you?" "Ellie," he breathed, rushing to the cell. "You're alive!" She emerged from the shadows, and I could see dried blood caking the side of her face. Officer's uniform, badge still pinned to her chest. Her eyes locked on me, narrowing with suspicion. "Who the hell is this?" "He's with me," Ray said, unlocking her cell. Maddox, we're working together. Ellie stepped out, never taking her eyes off me. Working together? Ray, do you know who? I know exactly who he is. Ray cut her off. Doesn't matter now. Tell me what happened here. She glanced between us, clearly struggling with the New World Order, then relented. It was chaos. Started around noon, calls coming in from everywhere, attacks, biting incidents. We thought it was some kind of mass psychosis, maybe a drug. Then Marcus brought in a perp who'd been bitten. Guy coded right in the booking area, then came back. How did you end up locked in there? I asked. Chief's orders. When things got bad, he told me to secure myself in a cell. Said he'd come back with help. She swallowed hard. He never did. Ray placed a hand on her shoulder. The armory? Should be untouched. Chief had the only key besides yours? We moved through the station to a reinforced door at the end of a hallway. Ray's hand trembled slightly as he unlocked it. Inside was a prepper's dream. Shotguns, rifles, handguns. Boxes of ammunition stacked on metal shelves, tactical gear, even a few gas masks. Christmas came early, I muttered, surveying the bounty. Ellie shot me a look. This isn't for you to steal. I met her gaze evenly. Not planning to steal anything, officer. Just trying to stay alive. Same as you. Ray intervened. Enough. We gear up, grab what we can carry, and figure out our next move. We worked silently, loading weapons and tactical vests. Through a small window in the armory, I could see darkness settling over Millbrook. Night would bring new dangers. The infected seemed more active after dark, more aggressive. We need to get out of town, I said finally. Military's setting up quarantine zones. Heard it on the radio. Ray nodded. Highway Patrol has an outpost about 20 miles north. Might be our best bet. If it's still there, Ellie said quietly. A crash from the front of the building cut off further discussion. Multiple impacts, heavy and deliberate. The infected had found us. Back door, Ray ordered. Through the bullpen. We moved quickly, loaded down with weapons and supplies. The main office area, the bullpen, was dark, desks standing like islands in shadow. Through the windows, I could see shapes moving in the parking lot, dozens of them, converging on the station. Someone should create a diversion, I said, eyeing the emergency exit. Draw them away from the back. Ray and Ellie exchanged glances. I'll do it, I continued before they could respond. I'm faster alone. Why would you help us? Ellie demanded. What's your angle? A fair question. Why was I helping them? I'd spent my whole life looking out for number one. Running, taking, surviving. But maybe that life had run its course. No angle, I replied. Just figured 3 guns are better than 1. Ray studied me for a long moment, then nodded. What's your plan? Cruiser's still got a siren, right? I'll drive around front, hit the lights and siren, lead them away. Circle back and meet you down the road. That's suicide, Ellie objected. Only if I screw up. I flashed her the cocky grin that had charmed bank tellers and border guards through the years. Not really my style. Ray handed me a police radio. Channel 3, we'll wait for your signal, then bug out. The decision made. We moved to our positions. At the side entrance, Ray gripped my arm. Why are you really doing this? I considered lying, then shrugged. Maybe I'm tired of only saving myself. The cruiser was where we'd left it, behind the gas station. As I approached, I spotted movement. A lone infected, once the station's clerk, judging by the tattered uniform. He turned toward me, jaw working soundlessly, arms outstretched. I dispatched him quietly with my knife, a skill learned in years of silent breaking and entering. No sound, no wasted motion. The body collapsed with barely a thud. Inside the cruiser, I took a moment to check the gear we'd packed. Weapons, ammunition, first aid supplies, food and water, tools for survival in this new broken world. The radio crackled. Ray's voice, tense but steady. Maddox, what's your status? Ready, I replied. On my way. I started the engine and floored it, tires squealing as I whipped around to the front of the police station. When I hit the lights and siren, the effect was immediate. Every infected head in sight swiveled toward me, their collective attention locked on the flashing lights and wailing siren. They surged forward like a tide of broken bodies, stumbling over each other in their rush to reach the cruiser. I kept the vehicle rolling just fast enough to stay ahead of them, leading them away from the station's back entrance. Through the rearview mirror, I caught a glimpse of Ray and Ellie making their break, running low and fast toward the tree line behind the station. Good. Phase 1 complete. I led the growing horde of infected down Main Street, away from both the station and Ray's planned escape route. The cruiser's engine roared as I pushed it to 40, then 50 miles per hour. Fast enough to break away when needed, slow enough to keep the infected following. 2 blocks. 3. The infected fell behind but kept coming, drawn by the noise. I cut the siren but left the lights flashing, still attracting attention, but giving myself room to maneuver. At the edge of town, I spotted what I was looking for, a fork in the road. Left would take me toward the highway patrol outpost Ray had mentioned. Right led deeper into countryside I didn't know. I'd planned to go left, circle back to find Ray and Ellie. But as I approached the intersection, I saw something that changed everything. A school bus, its front end smashed against a telephone pole. Children's faces pressed against the windows, illuminated in the cruiser's headlights. Alive, trapped, and surrounded by infected pounding on the metal sides. I hit the brakes, decision made before I even realized it. The radio crackled to life. "Maddox, we're clear. What's your position?" I picked up the handset. "Change of plans, found survivors, school bus off Route 16. "Wait for us." Ray's voice came back immediately. "Don't engage alone." But the infected were already breaching the emergency exit at the back of the bus. I could hear screams from inside. "No time," I replied. "Don't worry about me. Get to the outpost. I'll catch up." I didn't wait for his response. Grabbing the shotgun and a spare handgun, I left the cruiser's lights flashing to keep most of the infected distracted and ran toward the bus. The first infected went down with a shotgun blast to the head. The second turned toward me, blood dripping from its chin, eyes vacant. I recognized the tattered remains of a school uniform, a teenager, someone's child. I hesitated for a split second, then fired. The body dropped. The back door of the bus had been forced open. 2 infected were already inside. Grabbing at screaming children, I emptied the shotgun into the first, swapped to the handgun for the second. Clean headshots, just like Walsh had taught me in his final moments. Inside the bus, chaos reigned. A dozen children, elementary age, huttered at the front. A woman I assumed was the driver stood between them and the infected, wielding what looked like a fire extinguisher. "Get down!" I shouted, taking aim at an infected crawling through a broken window. The shot echoed inside the metal confines of the bus, sending the children into fresh screams of terror. 4 more infected down, and suddenly it was quiet except for the children's sobbing. The driver lowered her makeshift weapon, staring at me with equal parts relief and suspicion. "Who are you?" she demanded. "Someone trying to help," I replied, reloading the shotgun. "We need to move. That noise will bring more." She nodded, maternal instinct overriding caution. The doors jammed. "Engines dead. We've been trapped here for hours." I kicked at the folding doors, forcing them open with a screech of protesting metal. Outside, more infected were shambling toward us, drawn away from the cruiser by the gunshots. "Everyone stay together," I ordered. "I'll clear a path, head for the police car." The driver organized the children with practiced efficiency. "Buddy system. Hold hands. Follow Mr. Maddox," I supplied, not bothering with the false surname. We moved as a unit, the children wide-eyed with terror but surprisingly disciplined. The driver, Ms. Hammond, according to the kids, kept them moving with gentle but firm commands. The cruiser was 50 yards away, across an open stretch of road. Too far for the little ones to run without risking someone falling behind, and the infected were closing in from all sides, drawn by movement and the children's whispers. I made a decision. "Ms. Hammond, take this." I handed her the handgun. "You know how to use it?" She nodded grimly. "My brother's a cop. Get them to the car, I'll buy you time." Before she could argue, I strode toward the approaching infected, shotgun raised. Every shot was deliberate, economical. Headshots only, no wasted ammunition. I'd always been precise in my work, and now that precision was keeping children alive. Behind me, I heard Ms. Hammond ushering the kids toward the cruiser. I backed up slowly, maintaining distance between the infected and the escaping group. When I ran out of shotgun shells, I switched to my combat knife, taking down infected with quick thrusts to the base of the skull. A messy business, but effective. "Maddox, come on," Ms. Hammond called. She had the children loaded into the cruiser, the engine running. I turned to run, but my foot caught on an uneven patch of asphalt. I went down hard, the knife skittering away. An infected was on me before I could recover, teeth snapping inches from my face. I held it back with one arm, the other groping blindly for the knife. My fingers closed around the handle just as the infected's weight suddenly disappeared. Ray stood over me, his service weapon smoking. The infected lay next to me, half its head missing. "Thought you could use a hand," he said, helping me to my feet. Ellie was already at the cruiser, helping Ms. Hammond organize the terrified children. "You came back," I said, somewhat stupidly. Ray shrugged. "Couldn't let you have all the fun." We piled into the cruiser, grossly overloaded with adults and children. I ended up in the front passenger seat, with Ray driving and two of the smallest kids on my lap. As we pulled away, leaving the infected behind, I caught the look on Ms. Hammond's face in the rearview mirror. Pure gratitude. No one had ever looked at me like that before, like I was worth something, like I mattered. We drove in silence for several miles, the children gradually calming. One by one, they fell asleep, exhausted from hours of terror. Ms. Hammond explained in hushed tones what had happened. A field trip cut short when news of the outbreak reached them. The crash when their bus driver succumbed to a fever he'd been hiding all morning. "I've never fired a gun before today," she admitted quietly. "Never thought I would." "You did good," I told her. "Kept those kids alive." She studied me with tired eyes. "You're not really a police officer, are you?" I glanced at Ray, who kept his focus on the road. "No," I answered honestly, "I'm not." She nodded, as if confirming something to herself. "Doesn't matter. You saved us. That's what counts now." As we approached the highway patrol outpost, I could see it was still operational. Floodlights illuminated a makeshift barricade. Armed officers directed a trickle of survivors through a checkpoint. A safe haven. At least for now. Ray slowed the cruiser. "Maddox," he said, voice low so only I could hear. "There are officers there who will recognize you." I nodded, understanding the implication. "Pull over. I'll make my own way." "That's not what I meant." He pulled off onto the shoulder, just out of sight of the outpost's lights. "Those kids in there? They're alive because of you, Ms. Hammond too. So I'm going to tell them you're an undercover federal agent, that you were embedded with a criminal organization when the outbreak hit." He met my eyes steadily. "You deserve a second chance, we all do." I didn't know what to say. 10 years on the run, and now a cop was offering to help me create a new identity. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Why?" I finally asked. Ray looked back at the sleeping children. "Because the world's different now, and we need people who can do what you did back there. People who can make the hard calls, who can survive." He paused. "Besides, who's going to run a background check during the apocalypse?" I considered his offer. A clean slate, a chance to be someone different, someone better. "What about Ellie? She knows who I am." "She'll keep quiet. I've known her 10 years, she understands what's at stake." As if summoned by her name, Ellie leaned forward from the back seat. "For what it's worth," she said quietly, "I think he's right. I saw what you did for those kids." A small hand tugged at my sleeve. One of the children on my lap had woken up, a little girl, maybe 6 years old, with braided hair and solemn eyes. "Are we safe now?" she asked. I looked out at the outpost, then back at her. "Yeah," I said, "you're safe now." She nodded, satisfied, and closed her eyes again. Just like that, trusting me completely. We pulled back onto the road and approached the checkpoint. As we did, I thought about Walsh and Egon back at the hospital, about the nurse who'd tried to stitch me up, about the people I couldn't save and the ones I hadn't tried to. For 10 years, I'd been a ghost, Robberies, disappearances, names that weren't mine. I'd been smart, careful, always one step ahead. I'd lived for myself and only myself. And where had it gotten me? Number 7 on the FBI's most wanted list. No roots, no connections, nothing that mattered. Now the world had changed. The law was gone, but somehow I'd found a moral code I never knew I had. Maybe it had always been there, buried under years of survival and self-interest. Or maybe it took the end of the world for me to find something worth fighting for. As we passed through the checkpoint, an officer recognized Ray and waved us through without inspection. Just like that, Maddox's farewell, criminal, thief, fugitive, ceased to exist. In his place was just Maddox, survivor, protector. The little girl stirred in my lap again, wrapping small fingers around my hand in her sleep. I found myself holding on, making a silent promise I never thought I'd make. I'd keep her safe, all of them, for as long as I could, in this broken world that had somehow given me a second chance. Maybe that's what I needed, a clean slate in a dirty world. And if the dead didn't care about redemption, well, the living still did. Looking around at the faces of those I'd helped save, I realized something that surprised me. I wanted to deserve this.